we know now with the Cleveland Browns that they're in yet another era of transition. It's nonstop. Although Kevin Stefanski survived a lot of different changes on the shores of Lake Erie, and it is a little jarring to not talk about the Browns with Kevin Stefanski as the head coach. I still believe he was made a bit of the fall guy. Their number one issue, the reason that Myles Garrett left and that he wanted out even before he signed that huge deal about a year plus ago, a little over a year ago. The reason he wants out is because the Browns are not Super Bowl contenders. They're not a playoff team. And that all goes back to not Kevin Stefanski or who the head coach is. It goes back to the fact that they've had a revolving door at quarterback for as long as I have been in network sports radio. Okay, so we're talking about over 20 years, about 21 years for me since I was first doing my shows on ESPN radio or doing shows on ESPN radio when I first went to Bristol. Not in my entire career covering the Browns, except for a couple seasons with Baker Mayfield. And we know that they treated him poorly on the way out, so they bring in Deshaun Watson. Not since Baker, and really only Baker in my tenure covering the Browns have they ever had stability at that quarterback position. And it's sad because the Browns are now stuck in a hamster wheel. It's deja vu because Deshaun Watson is still under contract and somehow they still think that it can work. They still believe that Deshaun Watson could be the answer. And I feel badly for Todd Monken. He was handed a quarterback. Actually, two quarterbacks, three quarterbacks, if you count Dylan Gabriel. It's not like he got to choose. Now, the end of this guaranteed money for Deshaun Watson, it'll happen sometime soon. They're trying to see if they can get even one full quality season out of a guy who's played 19 games for them. 19 games since he started with the Browns and got that contract. What was it? 2022? It's unbelievable to me. It blows me away that they honestly think they're going to get something different out of a guy who has barely played football again for another year and a half. What's the colloquial or would you call it the modern definition of insanity? The one that people will pass around, doing the same thing over and over again and believing that you're going to see different results. At least they have Shedeur Sanders, who's battling against Deshaun Watson in the preseason. But most of the Browns insiders I talk to actually think they should have or need to cut bait with Deshaun Watson and just hand the reins to Shedeur Sanders. No, he's not as polished. No, he doesn't have as much experience. No, he hasn't been in the NFL as long. But since most of their roster, a lot of their roster is young, growing, talented pieces, but still fairly raw. It's a young roster. Why not let them all grow up around Shedeur and also with Todd Monken, who's a head coach for the first time? So the Browns are at this point still considering this a quarterback competition, but they are starting Deshaun Watson in their preseason opener. Okay, so means a whole lot of nothing, but this is how they get him some extra reps. This is their first preseason game is the Bears in Chicago Saturday, and then Shedeur will start their second preseason game at home against the Bills. So that comes up next weekend. Again, not like Shedeur's been named the starter, but at least he gets the first opportunity. And so I feel like we've heard this from Deshaun Watson over and over at different times since he joined the Browns. But yes, he gets the nod for preseason week number 1.
I'm super excited. I think all the hard work that I put in with the training staff, with my team, my personal team to get to this stage has been tremendous for myself. So I'm super excited, for those opportunities.
So Deshaun Watson is excited. That's kind of something we've heard from him at different junctures along the way, ever since he and the Browns stunned the NFL and really stunned the world by handing him that, what was it, 245 to, I don't even know anymore. The fully guaranteed contract, 256 million, something like that. They have seen him play in only 19 games. 19 games, whether it was the suspension that he had to serve initially because of all the charges against him or the allegations against him leveled by women who, you know, the story, women who had given him massages and all the accusations. That was a cesspool to wade into. The Browns determined that they thought that they could get the same talented guy who was a Pro Bowler before he decided to take a year off and just stand on the sidelines with the Houston Texans. So the path is, it's fascinating to me, the decisions that were made along the way. At any point, this could have turned out very differently, but Deshaun Watson determined that he wanted to trade. He wanted out of Houston. He felt disrespected. Now, this is going back to 2020. He felt disrespected because the Texans had gone ahead and hired some, there was a new GM. They'd hired a new GM without consulting him. That was the story that came out of Texas. So he determined he was not going to play. He wanted a trade. He was going to be stubborn. He was going to win that game of chicken, if you will, with the organization. So the organization decided that they would find a trade partner for him. Then all of the allegations start coming out. Various women. It was one, then it was two, then it was three. And it seemed like every week for a few months, there was a new masseuse or a new woman who had given Deshaun Watson a massage. The story was very similar. He found them on DMs on social media, Instagram, and they had various allegations about inappropriate actions by Deshaun, in some cases, even inappropriate physical contact. So a sexual assault by definition. And as he's standing on the sidelines there in 2020, now the Texans are happy that they've got another quarterback and that they don't have to put him on the field because they still want to trade him. They don't want him to get hurt, and they actually don't want him on the field because of all these allegations. So the Browns bite and they offer the Texans a haul. They end up going way over, whatever the bidding price or asking price would have been, the draft picks. It was something that the Texans couldn't have envisioned in their wildest dreams after all of the baggage now with Deshaun Watson. So he ends up in March of 2022 getting traded to the Browns. The Browns were never a consideration until they gave him that guaranteed money. I'm going to go and find the exact number because I don't want to be quoting the wrong things. It was ridiculous is what it was, regardless of the actual number. 230. So I was close. Okay. $230 million guaranteed. That's why he decided that he would go to Cleveland, but he had the suspension. Then he's had multiple injuries, 19 games since the 22 season. And when he's on the field, in large part because he's not getting a lot of reps or because he's inconsistent and he's not the same guy that he was. You can't take off so much time during a football season or multiple seasons. So again, not playing in 21, not playing in 22 for the most part, missing time with injuries. Now it's been another year and a half plus since he's played football that mattered. You can't expect that his skills don't diminish or that he's the same guy that he was when he was a Pro Bowler with the Texans during his rookie contract after Houston drafted him. So when he's on the field, his quarterback rating is among the worst that we've seen over that span going back to the 22 season. And unfortunately, this is where the Browns are, but it's not a new story with the Browns. And this is a part that every time I talk about Browns quarterbacks, I can't even read all the names anymore. I go back to 99 when they had their franchise resurrected, reborn, if you will. And since then, since 1999, they have had all of 3 seasons since 99 in which one quarterback has started every game. That's mind-blowing. That's not just a revolving door at quarterback. That's a disaster. So Tim Couch in 2001, and then more recently, a couple seasons with Baker Mayfield. Remember, he he was a rookie and they started Tyrod Taylor, but then Baker firmly was established as the starter pretty early in 2018. So in 19 and 20, Baker started every game, but they decided, and I know Baker was young, he was emotional, he liked to put his money where his mouth was, and he was a lot to take when he was immature, but they chose Deshaun Watson over him. And since then, no stability at all at the position. So starting in 2022, Jacoby Brissett, 11 games while Deshaun was suspended, and then Watson comes in for the final 6 of the year. In 23, Watson, Joe Flacco, their rookie, Dorian Thompson Robinson, PJ Walker, and Jeff Driscoll. I mean, are you kidding me? You paid $230 million fully guaranteed for a guy who can't stay on the field. The year after, again, Watson barely starts. He doesn't start half the games. He's out there for only 7. Jameis Winston, DTR again. Bailey Zappi started a game for them. And then last year, because Watson wasn't available with the injuries, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco again, which I actually love that part of the story. But yeah, it's frustrating over and over and over again. They go back to the same well and they're not going to get water that's a different color. If the water's brown from this well, it's going to be brown. If sometimes when you haven't, well, this, I'll just use our house as an example. We purchased a house that had been empty for a year and the water had been turned off. So we turned the water on, and as it first starts coming out of the faucets, it's brown, it's yellow, it's an eerie green color, very very scary. So we had to run the water for a while. Yeah, turning on that faucet, the water's not going to be a different color. And in fact, his skills may even be more diminished. So why then are the Browns using him at least first for the preseason? Well, for Todd Monken and for that coaching staff, they've determined that his experience gives him a slight edge over the athleticism and the explosiveness of a Shedeur Sanders. So we'll see if it changes during the preseason. But man, if you're a Browns fan, I don't know what I don't know what you prefer. I'd love to hear from you at A-Law Radio. You can find me, or you can weigh in on our YouTube stream. It's got to be frustrating. And maybe they don't have high expectations. I did speak to a Browns insider on a Sirius XM show that I did last week, and he actually said 6 or 7 wins, that if they go over the 5 wins, which is, I think, a line from Vegas, their owners indicated take the over, right? Don't go under. But this Browns insider I spoke to said maybe 6 or 7 wins. And that's too bad. They no longer have the star power of Myles Garrett or his skill set as one of the best defensive players in the NFL. And it could be tough. Ultimately, they've got to find the answer at quarterback because Deshaun Watson is not it. He's not it.